The Gala of 1,000 Species. The sky above Verilion Prime was not a sky at all. It was a living dome of light. Crystalline towers rose like frozen lightning, their spires refracting the aurora-bright glow of orbital rings and drifting city ships. Between them floated platforms of black glass and silver bone, carrying diplomats, merchants, warriors, and nobles from 1,000 star systems. Tonight was the Gala of Concordance, the one night every cycle when empires pretended they were civilized. Music pulsed through the air without speakers, vibrating directly against the inner ear. Gravity shifted subtly to accommodate species that preferred lighter steps or heavier footing. Perfumed atmospheres mingled, ozone, spice sap, ionized nectar. And moving unnoticed through all of it was a human. Elias Mercer wore no insignia, no medals, no diplomatic sash. Just a plain, dark jacket reinforced with medical fiber, a utility pack slung low, and the quiet posture of someone used to being ignored, which suited him perfectly. He wasn't here to dance. He was here to count exits, map patrol routes, and verify rumors. Rumors that said the Aurelian Empire was using the Gala as cover for something ugly. Elias paused near a translucent pillar, pretending to admire the drifting hollow constellations while his retinal display tracked heat signatures. Security density, high. Imperial War Marines disguised as ceremonial guards, confirmed. Medical emergencies expected in first 2 hours, statistically inevitable. That last line made him smile faintly. He was officially listed as a civilian relief contractor. Unofficially, he was what humanity had learned to become after centuries of being underestimated. A fixer, a healer, a witness. Elias took one slow breath. "All right," he murmured. "Let's see who bleeds tonight." The Shadow Gardens lay beneath the main concourse, a quieter space where bioluminescent flora drank excess sound and light. It was where guests went to breathe, molt, recharge, or, more often, to hide. Elias was moving through the outer ring when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Pain. Not loud, not dramatic, just a sharp, broken intake of breath, followed by the wet scrape of something dragged across stone. He turned. Between two living pillars of obsidian vine lay an alien woman collapsed against a bench grown from crystal bark. She was tall, even seated. Her skin shimmered like moonlit steel, etched with faint lines that pulsed weakly. One arm hung wrong at her side, dark ichor soaking the silk of her ceremonial robes, and no one was helping her. Guests passed by, glanced once, then looked away. Some recoiled, some whispered, some pretended not to see. Elias felt something cold settle behind his ribs. He knelt beside her without hesitation. "Hey," he said, softly, activating his med scanner. "Easy, I've got you." Her eyes snapped open. They were molten gold. For a heartbeat, Elias felt like prey. Then the fire dimmed, replaced by confusion and pain. "Do not," she rasped, her voice layered, harmonic. "Touch me." "Not here to hurt you," he replied calmly. "You're bleeding internally. Imperial-grade weapon?" Her jaw tightened. That was answer enough. He tore open his kit, hands steady as he applied a field stabilizer along her side. The wound was brutal, precise, military, meant to kill quietly. "You were left," he said, not accusing, just stating fact. She laughed weakly. "This is politics." Elias met her gaze. "Yeah, humanity tried that once, didn't end well." Around them, the gala continued,
and in the shadow gardens, the strongest warrior in the room bled unseen, except by one human who refused to walk away. Elias worked fast. The woman's physiology was unfamiliar: dense muscle lattice, layered organs, energy channels running parallel to veins, but pain translated universally. "You have training," she said between breaths, watching his hands. "Not civilian. Combat medic. Former. I fix what empires break." Her lips curved, faint but sharp. "Then you will find me difficult to keep alive." "Funny," he said. "People say that about humans, too." He sealed the wound with a shimmering biomesh. The bleeding slowed. Her breathing steadied. Only then did he really look at her. The robes were ceremonial, yes, but beneath them were scars, old ones, deep ones, the kind earned in wars, not ballrooms. "Name?" he asked. She hesitated. Then, "Caliph." It was a lie. Elias knew it the way medics know when a patient is hiding something, not by logic, but by instinct. "All right, Caliph," he gently said. "We need to get you somewhere safe." Her eyes flicked toward the upper levels, where Aurelian banners floated like golden claws. "They will hunt, and if they find you with me—" He shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first empire mad at me." Something passed through her expression then, surprise maybe, or respect. She allowed him to help her stand, and in that moment, not the diplomats, not the spies, not even Elias himself recognized the truth, that the woman leaning on a human medic was Queen Caliph Vera of the Sorinth clans, undefeated champion of the Blood Rings, breaker of armadas, the strongest warrior in the Gala. High above, in a private observation spire, Admiral Threx Valmore watched the feeds scroll past. "Zoom," he ordered. The image sharpened on the shadow gardens, on an alien Sorinth female, and a human. Valmore's mandibles clicked slowly. "That is not part of the arrangement," he said. An aide shifted nervously. "The Sorinth delegation claimed their queen did not attend." Valmore smiled. "Of course she did. Pride always brings them." His eyes narrowed. "And humans," he added softly, "always interfere." He gestured. "Activate containment protocol, quietly. If the queen dies tonight, the clans fracture. If she lives," his smile widened, "we make an example of the one who helped her." The first drone burst through the garden wall in a spray of crystalline shards. Elias reacted instantly. "Down!" he shouted, shoving Caliph aside as a stun bolt scorched the air where her head had been. She moved despite her injury, rolling, striking, disabling the drone with a single precise blow that shattered its core. Elias stared. "You said you were difficult to keep alive," he muttered. She met his gaze, fierce even through pain. "I was being polite." More drones swarmed in. Elias grabbed her hand. "Run!" They fled into the living corridors, hallways that shifted and breathed, walls rearranging to confuse predators. Elias moved by instinct, counting steps, forcing doors. Behind them, Imperial forces gave chase. Caliph stumbled. Elias caught her. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, something deeper sparked. Not romance yet, something older. Trust. They collapsed into a forgotten sanctuary chamber, a relic of an older civilization. Caliph pressed her palm to the floor. The chamber awakened. Glyphs ignited. Energy surged. A Sorinth healing rite, forbidden to outsiders. "You should not witness this," she warned. Elias shook his head. "Won't survive alone." She studied him, then nodded once. As the ritual began, energy flowed, not just into her wounds, but between them. Elias gasped as memories brushed his mind. Battlefields, honor duels, a crown earned in blood. Caliph cried out as she felt something new in return, human stubbornness, compassion, the refusal to abandon the fallen. When the light faded, they were both changed, connected. "You are no mere noble," Elias said quietly. Caliph straightened, power returning to her posture. "I am queen of the Soranth clans, and tonight the Empire tried to assassinate me in peace." Elias exhaled slowly. "Yeah, that tracks." Above them, the gala burned brighter, on the brink of war. And this was only the beginning. The gala of 1,000 species. The sky above Verillion Prime was not a sky at all. It was a living dome of light. Crystalline towers rose
After the rite, the sanctuary still hummed, not loudly, not like engines or weapons, but with the quiet resonance of something ancient that had recognized them. Elias sat against the curved wall, breathing hard, palms pressed to the stone. The aftertaste of the ritual clung to his thoughts like static. He had seen things, not visions exactly, more like truths brushing past his mind. Kalis standing alone in a ring of fire while challengers fell around her. A crown placed upon her head by warriors who feared her and loved her for it. A vow carved into bone and blood. The Soranth will never kneel. And threaded through it all now, him. Human memories, stubborn and bright. Field hospitals under bombardment, pulling strangers from rubble because someone had to. Choosing compassion even when it was inefficient. Caliph stood in the center of the chamber, straight-backed now, her wounds sealed by luminous sigils, fading into her skin. She looked formidable. No, she looked unstoppable. "You should not still be alive," she said softly. Elias snorted. "I get that a lot." She turned to him, studying him openly now, not as a wounded stranger, but as something new. "You saw," she said. "Yeah," he admitted. "Didn't mean to. Guess your ritual had other plans." Her jaw tightened. The bond was not intentional. "Sure," he said lightly. "Neither was saving you." That earned him a sharp look, then unexpectedly a smile. Small, dangerous. "You are either very brave," Caliph said, "or catastrophically foolish." Humanity's been arguing about that for centuries. They did not have long. The sanctuary's outer sensors flared, pressure changes, energy spikes. Elias's wrist display pinged red. "Imperial troops," he said, "heavy." Caliph closed her eyes for a brief moment, centering herself. "Valmor," she said. "He commands the Aurelian Black Armada." Elias looked up sharply. "The war crimes guy?" Her gaze snapped to him. "You know of him?" "Hard not to," Elias said grimly. "Human relief fleets still dig mass graves where his pacification campaigns passed." Silence stretched between them. Then Caliph said with absolute certainty, "He ordered my death." Elias rose to his feet. "Then we're on the same side." The sanctuary doors detonated inward. Imperial war marines poured through, gold armor, disruptor rifles, visors blowing with target locks. "Down!" Elias shouted. Caliph didn't duck. She stepped forward. The air bent. Energy rippled from her body in a controlled shockwave, slamming the first wave of marines into the walls, hard enough to crater living stone. Elias stared for half a second too long. "Strongest warrior in the gala. Of course you are." Caliph moved like violence given purpose. Even injured, she was terrifying. Strikes precise, efficient, devastating. She disarmed one Marine, used his weapon to disable two more, then hurled the rifle through another's chest plate. Elias wasn't idle.
He dragged a fallen Marine into cover, ripped the power cell from the rifle, and jury-rigged it into a flash charge. "Caliph!" he yelled. "Eyes!" She trusted him instantly, turning away as the charge detonated, blinding half the squad. They ran. They burst back into the upper levels. The gala was no longer a celebration. It was chaos. Guests screamed as security fields failed. Species scattered in every direction. Hollow dancers flickered and died mid-motion. Explosions cracked crystal balconies. Imperial banners dropped, replaced by open war marines advancing in formation. "This was never a negotiation," Elias said grimly. "It's a coup." Calith's eyes burned. "They mean to decapitate every free power present." A transport exploded overhead, raining molten debris. Elias grabbed her arm, pulling her into a collapsing corridor. "You said your people don't kneel," he said. "They don't," she replied. "Good, because neither do humans." They took shelter in a damaged arboretum, bioluminescent leaves drifting like embers. For a moment, just a moment, there was quiet. Caliph leaned heavily against a shattered trunk. "You are bleeding," Elias said, already moving. She caught his wrist. "Not badly," she said. "You are concerned." He hesitated. "Yeah, I guess I am." Their eyes met. The bond pulsed, subtle, intimate, not desire alone, something deeper, recognition. "If you survive this," Caliph said softly, "you will be hunted." Elias smiled tiredly. "Join the club." She reached out, touching his chest, right over his heart. "You chose me," she said softly, "when it would have been safer not to." "Someone had to," he replied. The moment lingered, fragile, real. Then the world came crashing back. A new presence flooded the arboretum, cold, heavy. A holographic projection resolved into the towering form of Admiral Threx Valmore. "Your Majesty," Valmore purred, "you bleed magnificently." Caliph straightened, fury blazing. "You violate every accord." Valmore's mandibles flexed. "Accords are for the weak." His gaze shifted to Elias. "And you," he said with interest, "a human medic who thinks himself a hero." Elias shrugged. "I've been called worse." Valmore smiled. "Kill him," the Admiral ordered casually, "and I may let your people survive." Calith's power flared. She stepped in front of Elias. "No," she said. The word carried command. Valmore's smile faded. "So it be," he said. "Then I will break you both." The projection vanished. The hunt intensified. They fled toward the lower docks, alarms screaming, station defenses failing. Sorenth warriors finally joined the fight, recognizing their queen at last. Humans, relief crews, traders, civilians picked up weapons, formed lines, helped strangers. Elias watched it unfold in awe. "You inspire people," he said. Caliph shook her head. "You remind them they are worth saving." They reached a stolen transport, engines roaring. As the craft tore free of Virilian Prime, the station burned behind them. Caliph looked out at the stars, then turned to Elias. "The Empire has declared us enemies," she said. Elias met her gaze, steady. "Good," he replied, "means we're doing something right." She extended her hand. "Stand with me," Caliph said, "not as a subject, as a partner." Elias took it. No crowns, no kneeling. She smiled, fierce, proud, alive. Agreed. The stars stretched into hyperspace, and across the galaxy, empires began to tremble.
Flight into exile. Hyperspace roared like a living thing. The stolen transport tore through folded dimensions, its hull groaning under stresses that had never been meant to endure. Warning lights flickered red and amber across the cockpit. Elias sat strapped into the co-pilot's chair, hands moving fast across unfamiliar controls. "Engines are overheating," he called out.
Whoever built this thing expected ceremonial hops, not combat escapes. Kaleith stood behind him, one hand braced against the bulkhead, the other pressed flat against the deck. Faint sigils pulsed beneath her skin as she fed controlled energy into the ship's stabilizers. "It will hold," she said, "for now." Elias glanced back at her. She looked different when she wasn't bleeding. Not softer, sharper. The queenly presence she'd kept buried beneath diplomacy and injury now radiated freely. She was power restrained by will alone. "You've done this before," he said. "Running?" she replied. "Surviving." Kaleith's eyes reflected the hyperspace glow. "Survival is not victory." "No," Elias agreed, "but it's step one." Far behind them, Virillion Prime burned. The Gala of Concordance had collapsed into open violence, and the shock waves rippled outward faster than any ship could travel. Within hours, neutral systems closed their borders. Merchant guilds suspended Imperial contracts. Human channels flooded with the leaked footage of Imperial Marines firing into civilian crowds. In a dozen hidden listening posts, analysts stared at the same truth. The Aurelian Empire had overplayed its hand. And at the center of the storm was a human medic and a wounded queen who should have died quietly. Kaleith felt it before Elias saw it. "The clan stir," she said softly. "My people sense the bond awaken." Elias frowned. "Bond?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "The Sorenth royal line carries a resonance," she said. "When the queen forms a true bond, it echoes." He blinked. "You're saying the galaxy knows you picked me up in a garden?" Her mouth curved. "Not the details, only that I am no longer alone." Elias leaned back in his chair, exhaling. "Yeah, that tracks too." The proximity alarm screamed. "Contact!" Elias shouted. 3 signatures, no, 4, dropping out of hyperspace. The view screen flared as sleek Imperial interceptors snapped into real space around them, weapons already charging. Valmore didn't waste time. "Brace!" Elias yelled. The first volley ripped past their hull, tearing away sensor arrays. The transport lurched violently. Kaleith stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Give me control," she said. "Of the ship?" Elias asked. "No," she replied. She opened the rear hatch. Vacuum howled. Elias stared. "Kaleith, that's—" She leapt. For a split second, she was nothing but a silhouette against the stars. Then she changed. Energy erupted around her, not wild, not uncontrolled, but shaped, disciplined. An armor formed from light and will, a blade of condensed force ignited in her hand. The interceptors fired. Kaleith met them head-on. She cut through space itself, deflecting plasma, tearing through hulls with surgical fury. One ship detonated, another spun out of control, gutted. Elias watched in stunned silence. Strongest warrior, understatement of the century. Kaleith returned through the hatch moments later, landing lightly as the final interceptor fled. She looked embarrassed. "I prefer diplomacy," she said. Elias laughed, breathless, disbelieving. "Sure you do." They limped into Haven Station, a hidden conglomeration of welded ships, asteroid tunnels, and repurposed habitats drifting beyond Imperial charts. It was where refugees went, where smugglers, medics, defectors, and exiles built something like a life. Human flags hung beside alien sigils. No one asked for titles, only whether you needed help. As they docked, Elias felt something loosen in his chest. "This feels familiar," he said. Kaleith studied the chaos with quiet wonder. "It is not ruled by fear." "Yeah, we tried that once. Didn't stick." They were met by a mixed-species crew, humans, Sorenth scouts, avians from the Lethari Reach, and one small figure hiding behind a cargo crate. A child, thin, gray-skinned, eyes too large for their face. Elias knelt instinctively. "Hey there," he said gently. "You hurt?" The child shook their head, clutching a cracked data slate. Caliph froze. That one is twin, a foundling of my clans, orphaned in an imperial purge. Elias's jaw tightened. How many? He asked. Caliph's voice dropped. Too many. The child looked up at Elias, then at Caliph, and took a tentative step closer. Something shifted. Not politics, not war. Family. Later, in a dim compartment overlooking the station's heart, Elias cleaned his equipment while Caliph watched the stars. You could leave, she said suddenly. This war is not yours. Elias didn't look up. Empire burned hospitals with my friends inside. That makes it personal. She turned toward him. And me? She asked quietly. He met her gaze. That too. The bond pulsed, warmer now, deeper. Caliph crossed the space between them. For the first time, she let herself rest her forehead against his. Not dominance, not ceremony, just closeness. If I fall, my people will fracture. If you fall, Elias replied, we'll make damn sure it means something. Her hands rested over his heart. You are dangerous, she murmured. He smiled softly. So are you. Across the stars, Admiral Valmore stood before the Imperial High War Council. The Queen lives, and she has allied with humans. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Valmore's mandibles flexed. I request authorization for total suppression. Silence. Then approval lights ignited, one by one. Valmore smiled. Good. Then we end this properly. He turned toward a new projection, Haven Station's approximate coordinates. And this time, he added, we take everything they love. At Haven Station, alarms began to ring. Long-range sensors lit up with impossible numbers. A fleet. Imperial. Caliph stepped on the command platform, presence rolling outward.
Sarinth warriors knelt. Humans didn't, but they stood with her anyway. Elias took position at her side. You ready? He asked. Caliph's eyes burned like suns. For my people, she said. For the child. For us. Elias nodded. Humanity's got your back. Outside the viewport, stars dimmed beneath the shadow of warships. The battle for the future was about to begin, and neither queen nor human intended to lose. The stars went dark. Not metaphorically, literally. Haven Station's outer sensors screamed as the void ahead of them bent beneath mass and gravity. One by one, silhouettes emerged from hyperspace like predators surfacing from deep water. Imperial warships. Dozens, then hundreds. Golden hulls bristling with weapon spines, carrier bays yawning open like jaws. At the center loomed Valmore's flagship, a cathedral of war, banners blazing with imperial sigils meant to inspire fear. On Haven Station, the silence that followed was heavy. Somewhere, a child cried. Elias stood on the command deck, fists clenched at his sides. That's not a raid, that's extermination, he said quietly. Caliph stood beside him, her presence steadying the room. Her voice carried without amplification. They believe fear will make us scatter. They believe strength is measured in fleets. She turned, not to her warriors alone, but to everyone. They are wrong. Haven Station did not have a navy. It had people. Human engineers rerouted power grids into makeshift shield arrays. Smugglers armed cargo ships with jury-rigged cannons. Medics cleared corridors, converting marketplaces into triage zones. No one asked who was in charge. They simply acted. Elias moved through the chaos, checking on crews, stabilizing wounded from earlier skirmishes, offering calm where panic threatened to spread. A Lethery pilot grabbed his arm. You're the human who saved the Queen. Elias grimaced. I handed her a bandage. The pilot barked a laugh. In this galaxy, that's how legends start. In a quieter compartment deep within the station, Tern sat curled against the bulkhead, clutching the cracked data slate.
Caliph knelt in front of them, lowering herself to the child's level. "You are safe," she said gently. Tern shook her head. "They always come," the child whispered. "They took my parents." Elias felt something twist painfully in his chest. He crouched beside them. "Hey," he said softly, "they don't get to take you. Not today." Tern looked between them, the queen glowing faintly with restrained power, the human with blood on his sleeves and kindness in his eyes. "You won't leave?" the child asked. Elias glanced at Caliph. She answered without hesitation, "Never." The first shot split the void. A lance of energy tore into Haven Station's outer ring, vaporizing an entire docking arm. Debris scattered like shrapnel, smashing into nearby habitats. Screams echoed through the station. "Shields at 40%!" someone yelled. Caliph's eyes hardened. "Signal the clans. Command release restraint." Cerinth warriors surged forward, igniting personal energy fields. Not a fleet, but a wall of will. Elias keyed his comm. "All human crews, this is not a retreat, this is a hold. Protect civilians first. Hit hard when you can." A dozen voices answered back. "Copy. Roger that. Let's show them." Caliph stepped into open space once more. This time she did not hold back. Her aura flared outward, rippling across the battlefield like a supernova, restrained only by discipline. Imperial targeting systems glitched. Missiles veered off course. She sang, a low, resonant command carried through subspace. Cerinth warriors responded instantly. They moved as one, striking weak points, boarding ships, dismantling Imperial formations from within. Elias watched from the command deck, awe and fear tangled together. "She's burning herself out," he muttered. A Cerinth commander shook their head. "She is reminding the galaxy who we are." The flagship's hangar doors opened. A massive drop craft thundered toward Haven Station, flanked by elite Marines. Valmore wanted this personal. "He's coming in," Elias said, "straight toward the civilian core." Caliph's voice dropped. "He seeks to break us symbolically." "Then we don't let him reach them," Elias said. She turned to him. "You may not survive facing him." Elias smiled grimly. "Yeah, that's been the theme." She took his hand, briefly, fiercely. "Then stand with me. Always." Imperial Marines breached the station. Hallways became war zones, plasma fire lighting up steel corridors. Humans fought alongside aliens without orders, covering each other instinctively. Elias dragged a wounded dockworker to safety, slapped a sealant patch over a chest wound, then grabbed a fallen rifle. "Stay down," he ordered. "You're not dying today." Valmore entered like a god of war, towering, armored, surrounded by elite guards. His voice boomed across the station. "Queen Caliph, kneel and I spare the child." Every Cerinth froze. Elias felt the rage hit Caliph like a physical blow. She stepped forward. "I will end you," she said calmly. Valmore laughed. "Then try." Before Caliph could move, Elias stepped up beside her. "You don't get to threaten kids," he said flatly. Valmore's gaze shifted to him. "A medic," the Admiral sneered. "You think courage makes you dangerous?" Elias raised the rifle, not at Valmore, but at the structural supports above. "Not courage," he said. "Preparation." He fired. The ceiling collapsed. Chaos erupted. Caliph surged forward in that instant, blade blazing, slamming into Valmore with the force of a starfall. Their clash shook the station, energy and steel colliding. Elias fought his way toward Tern, shielding the child as debris rained down. "You promised," Tern whispered. "I know," Elias said. "I'm keeping it." The battle raged. Valmore was powerful, ancient, augmented, ruthless. He wounded Caliph deeply, tearing through her energy field with a hidden weapon. She staggered. Elias screamed her name. Something inside him snapped. He ran, through fire, through falling debris, and caught her as she fell. The bond flared, overwhelming. Human resolve flooded into Cerinth fury. Caliph rose again, not alone, together. She struck Valmore down, shattering his armor, sending him crashing through a bulkhead. The Admiral retreated, wounded but alive. "This is not over," he hissed, before vanishing into emergency extraction. The Imperial fleet withdrew.
Not defeated, but shaken. Haven Station still stood. Fires burned, the wounded cried out, but the civilians lived. Caliph knelt beside Elias, pressing her forehead to his. "You should not have survived that," she said quietly. He smiled weakly. "You keep saying that." Tren stepped between them, clutching Elias's sleeve. "Are we a family?" the child asked hesitantly. Caliph's eyes softened. Elias swallowed. "If you want to be," he said. Tren nodded fiercely. "Yes." Outside, the stars burned brighter again. The galaxy had witnessed something new. Not just resistance, unity. The galaxy learned what happens when you hurt our child. Haven Station smelt like scorched metal and antiseptic. Emergency lights still pulsed along the corridors, but the screams had faded. Fires were out, hull breaches sealed. The station lived. Barely, but it lived. Elias sat on the edge of a medbay cot, forearms resting on his knees, watching the steady rise and fall of Caliph's chest. She lay unconscious, surrounded by Cerinth healers whose hands glowed softly as they worked. "She burned too deep," one of them said. "She gave more than was safe." Elias didn't answer. Terran slept curled against his side, small fingers knotted in his jacket like an anchor. He did not move. Caliph woke to pain, not the sharp agony of battle, but the deep ache of survival, of having gone beyond the edge and been dragged back. She opened her eyes. Elias was there, exhausted, blood-stained, alive. For a long moment, she simply watched him breathe. "You stayed," she murmured. He looked up instantly. Wasn't going anywhere. Her gaze shifted to Terran. The child stirred, then smiled sleepily when they saw her awake. "You won," Terran said. Caliph's throat tightened. "No," she said softly. "We endured." She reached out, resting her hand over Elias's. The bond responded, warm, steady, unbreakable. Across the station, a human technician patched together a signal. "No encryption," Elias ordered. "No edits. Let them see everything." The feed went live across dozens of systems. It showed Imperial ships firing on civilians, Valmore threatening a child, humans and aliens fighting side by side, Caliph standing, wounded but unbroken, and finally, Elias speaking directly to the galaxy. "This isn't rebellion," he said calmly. "This is defense. If you stand with empires that murder children, you're complicit. If you stand with us, welcome." He didn't threaten. He didn't plead. He told the truth. The transmission ended. For 3 heartbeats, the galaxy was silent. Then everything changed. Ships began to arrive. Not Imperial, independent. A Lithari flotilla dropped out of hyperspace first, sleek, fast, armed to the teeth. Then Merchant Guild defense cruisers. Then something no one expected. A humanitarian carrier, one of the old ones, marked with scars and faded insignia from forgotten wars. Its captain's voice crackled over open comms. "This is the mercy of Sol. We saw the broadcast.
We're not leaving. Caliph closed her eyes. The bond flared with something dangerously close to hope. In the depths of his flagship, Valmore tore apart a command console with his bare hands. "They defy me," he snarled. "A queen and a medic." An aide hesitated. "The council is concerned. Systems are withdrawing support." Valmore turned slowly. "Then we remind them why fear built this empire." He activated a hidden protocol. Deep space weapons stirred, ancient, forbidden. "If they love their children so much, we will erase the places children are born." In a quiet compartment overlooking the station's core, Elias sat with Caliph and Terran. No guards, no ceremony, just them. "You don't have to stay," Caliph said to Elias, "not as more than an ally." He looked at Terran, then at her. "I already chose," he said. Terran looked between them, nervous. "Does that mean—" Caliph knelt, placing her hands gently on the child's shoulders. "It means," she said, "that you are ours, if you wish." Terran's eyes filled. "Yes," the child whispered. Elias swallowed hard. Something in his life finally made sense. Later, when the station slept, Elias and Caliph stood alone beneath a viewport full of stars. "This path leads to war," she said quietly. "Long, costly." Elias nodded. "Humanity's familiar with those." She turned to him. "And if I fall?" He met her gaze, unwavering. "Then I carry your people forward, and our child, and the idea that love crossed species and scared an empire." Caliph reached up, resting her forehead against his. The contact was intimate, not physical passion, but something deeper. A vow. Then, very softly, "When this ends, I would build a future with you." Elias smiled. "Let's make sure it ends." Far across the galaxy, systems lit up with conflict. Imperial crackdowns met resistance. Human convoys broke blockades. Sorinth warriors reclaimed lost worlds, and whispered across every channel was the same phrase: "They threatened a child." The Empire had made a mistake older than history. They had given humanity.
The planet Karun's reach had no strategic value. No shipyards, no rare resources, no major fleets. It was a refuge world. Valmore chose it anyway. Imperial fire descended like judgment, orbital strikes shattering cities, atmosphere igniting in sheets of flame. Civilian transports barely escaped as continents cracked. The message was clear. This is what happens when you protect their child. The footage reached Haven Station within hours. Elias watched in silence. Caliph did not look away. "They are trying to break us," she said. Elias's voice was flat. "They just taught us who they are." The Allied Council chamber was packed. Sorinth war leaders, human captains, merchant guild reps, refugee delegates. Arguments clashed like weapons. "We can't match their fleets. Negotiation is still possible. They'll burn more worlds." Elias stood slowly. The room quieted, not because of rank, but because of reputation. "We don't win by being nicer than the Empire," he said calmly. "We win by being worse at the right moment." Some flinched. Caliph watched him carefully. "We don't target civilians," Elias continued, "ever. But Imperial war infrastructure, supply chains, command nodes?" He looked around the room. "Humans specialize in asymmetry." Silence. Then a human engineer spoke up. "We've got prototypes," she said. "Stuff we never deployed because it scared our own ethics boards."
Elias nodded once. Good, he said. Dust them off. Caliph felt it then, the shift. Humanity had stopped reacting. They were planning. Deep in Haven Station's core, the prototype powered up. Not a bomb, not a beam, a gravitic inversion lattice, designed to fold space around massive objects, collapsing fleets inward without touching planets. It had been shelved decades ago. Too dangerous, too final, too human. Caliph studied the projections. This would erase an armada, she said, entirely. Elias met her gaze. Only warships, only active combat zones. She searched his face. And after? He didn't hesitate. Then we dismantle it, or destroy it. Humanity doesn't keep knives like this lying around. She nodded slowly. Then I stand with you. Valmore's forces surged deeper into neutral space, confident, cruel. He watched reports of resistance with amusement. Let them bleed. Fear will bring them crawling back. An aide hesitated. Sir, human movement patterns have changed. Valmore's mandibles stilled. How? They're not defending worlds anymore. They're vanishing. Valmore frowned. You cannot fight what you cannot see, the aide whispered. Valmore smiled thinly. Then we burn everything until they reappear. Imperial Fleet Group 7 entered Void Crossing, a narrow hyperspace junction critical to Imperial logistics. They never came out. Space twisted, gravity screamed, warships collapsed inward, armor folding like paper, reactors imploding in silent flashes. In less than 30 seconds, an entire fleet ceased to exist. Across the galaxy, sensors went dark. At Haven Station, the command deck was silent. Caliph closed her eyes. Elias exhaled slowly. We warned them, he said. Panic rippled through Imperial space. Supply lines failed. Admirals hesitated. Occupied worlds revolted. Messages flooded in. What did you do? Can you protect us? How do we join? Elias stared at the incoming requests. We can't save everyone, he said quietly. Caliph placed her hand over his. But we can change the balance. T-Ren watched from the doorway, wide-eyed. You stopped them, the child said. For now, Elias replied. That's how humans do things. Valmore watched the battle replay in stunned silence. An entire fleet, gone. This is impossible, he hissed. An officer swallowed. Sir, the Council is withdrawing support. They fear escalation. Valmore turned, eyes burning. Cowards, he spat. He activated a private channel, one he had sworn never to use. Ancient coordinates lit up. If the Empire will not finish this, then I will, Valmore said, voice shaking with fury. Something old stirred in the dark. Later, alone with Caliph, Elias finally sat down. His hands trembled. I just erased thousands of lives, he said quietly. Caliph knelt before him, taking his hands. No, she said firmly, you ended a slaughter. The Empire chose to place those ships there. He looked at her, searching. And if we become monsters? She met his gaze without flinching. Then we stop, together. The bond steadied him. Human resolve anchored by alien honor. Across free space, the story spread. Not propaganda, truth.
A human medic stood between a queen and an empire. They threatened a child, and humanity answered. The empire blinked. On occupied worlds, people whispered a new name. Not Elias Mercer, not Kylith Vera, but a phrase. The line they would not cross. Long-range sensors flared. Something massive was moving, older than imperial doctrine, hidden beyond charts, awakening. Kylith felt it in her bones. This war's about to change, she said. Elias nodded grimly. Then we finish it.
Tren stepped forward, taking both their hands. Together, the child said. Outside, the stars trembled. The stars did not explode. They went silent. Every sensor across free space registered the same anomaly, a gravitational shadow so vast it bent navigation, communication, even thought. Kyleth stood frozen on the command deck. "That is not a ship," she whispered. Elias stared at the projection, an impossible structure unfolding from folded space, ringed with dead worlds and ancient debris. "A god engine," he said quietly, or what empires call one when they're afraid to admit they built a weapon. Valmore's voice echoed across all channels, unfiltered and triumphant. "Behold the final arbiter, the will of the Empire made eternal. Kneel or be erased." Tren tightened their grip on Elias's hand. "They're going to burn everything," the child whispered. Elias knelt in front of them. "No," he said gently, "they're going to try." Kyleth turned away from the projection. "There is something I have not told you," she said. The room stilled. "The Sorinth royal line does not merely command warriors," she continued. "We were created to end things like this." Elias's breath caught. "End? How?" Kyleth met his eyes. "With our lives." Silence slammed down like a physical force. "No," Elias said instantly. "That's not happening." "The Arbiter is bound to ancient resonance," she said. "Only a living counter-frequency can collapse it. I was trained for this before I could speak." Elias shook his head violently. "Absolutely not. We find another way. Humans always do." Kyleth stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. "You already found it," she said softly. "You reminded me I am more than a weapon." The god engine advanced. Worlds dimmed as its energy siphoned stars themselves. Valmore appeared again, armored, unhinged. "You should have stayed a medic," he sneered at Elias. "You could have lived." Elias looked at him, really looked. "You were never afraid of us," Elias said. "You were afraid of losing control." Valmore roared. "I am the Empire." Kyleth stepped forward. "No," she said calmly. "You are its last mistake." Elias turned to the command crews. "All ships," he said steadily, "target the god engine's anchors, not to destroy, to expose." "But it won't be enough," someone protested. Elias nodded. "I know." He turned to Kyleth. "And it won't cost you your life." Her eyes widened. "What are you planning?" He smiled, tired, human, stubborn. "Sharing the load." As allied fleets engaged, Kyleth and Elias stood together at the heart of the station. Kyleth reached out, not with power, but with trust. The bond surged. Not domination, not sacrifice. Union. Human resilience braided with Sorinth resonance. Pain flared, then steadied. Together, they became the counter-frequency. The god engine screamed. Ancient systems destabilized, collapsing inward as the anchors failed. Valmore watched in horror. "No, this is impossible." Kyleth spoke, her voice layered with Elias's. "This is what you never understood," they said. "Power shared does not break." The god engine imploded, not violently, but quietly, folding into nothing. Valmore's final flagship was caught in the collapse. His final transmission was a whisper. "What are you?" Elias answered softly. "Human." The stars returned. Fleets drifted, stunned. The Empire's ultimate weapon was gone. So was its will. Kyleth collapsed. Elias caught her. For a terrifying second, she did not move. Then she inhaled. Alive. The bond dimmed, no longer burning, but settled. Finished. Months later, the Empire fractured into treaties and trials. Valmore's name became a warning, not a banner. Human worlds and Sorinth clans signed the accord of shared guardianship. No empire, no god weapons, no children targeted ever again. Haven Station became Haven City, a place where refugees became citizens. On a quiet terrace overlooking a newborn star, Elias sat with Kyleth and Tren. The child laughed, chasing drifting light creatures. "Do I have to be a warrior?" Tren asked. Kyleth smiled softly. "Only if you choose." Elias added, "You can be a builder or a healer or annoying. Humans excel at that last one." Tren giggled. As twin suns set, Kyleth turned to Elias. "The clans will ask you to stand beside me," she said, "not as a ruler, but as family." Elias took her hand. "No kneeling," he reminded her. She smiled, radiant, unbroken. "Never." They stood together, watching a future that had nearly burned away. Across the galaxy the story spread. A human medic chose compassion. A queen chose love. A child was protected. An empire fell. And wherever fear rose again, someone would whisper, "Remember what happened when they hurt our family." The stars listened, and this time they held.